Workers from an oil business are on board a ship in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Somalia, performing maintenance on submerged oil and gas pipes by diving to great depths. One morning, the ship's alarm starts to blare, so Engel gets the little necklace he carries as a memento of his deceased wife and goes to investigate. Mitch reveals that the ship is rotating because they have discovered a low-pressure lead on the pipeline and manifold, when he finally makes it to the communications room where he finds boss Carson fighting with their superiors on the phone. Carson disregards Engel's warnings that a storm is approaching in favor of sending a crew underwater. They'll need to assemble whomever they can find, even a very young employee, since the majority of dive teams have already left for home. Once more, Engel objects, saying that the youngster hasn't descended below 30 meters, but Carson refuses to budge and places Mitch in charge. Young Jones is genuinely happy to be going underwater when Engel goes to deliver him the news later. When Mitch goes looking for Hurst, he is shocked to see how much alcohol he has consumed. Hurst notes that his shift is done, but when Mitch offers double pay, he agrees to go. The squad then gets ready, and Jones calls his expecting wife to let her know he'll be a day late. Unfortunately, Mitch is unable to contact anybody at home. The squad eventually enters the diving bell and starts their descent into the water a little while later. Jones brings a jar of hair gel, which Engel observes and instructs him to open. Due to the pressure difference, the contents run all over Jones' clothing. Hurst's hands tremble as he buckles his seatbelt, and he has alcohol withdrawal symptoms as they go further. After the group successfully descends, Jones stays on the bell while the other three walk outside to repair the pipe. The three men put forth a lot of effort to finish the repairs, but it will take some time. Jones looks at a photograph of his wife and observes a lovely creature swimming past as he attempts to pass the time. The bell starts vibrating violently out of the blue, and Jones scrambles to make contact with the ship. It appears like the storm has finally come, but the ship's comms fall out before Jones can inquire further. Hurst refuses to complete the task and swims back to the bell when Jones explains what transpired, leaving Engel and Mitch to complete the repairs. At that point, the bell begins to tremble once more, and Hurst exhorts his comrades to return right away. Fortunately, they complete the repairs just in time, go back to the bell, and make communication with the ship once more. Mitch requests that Carson carry the bell back to the surface despite the fact that he claims they were hit. The bell slowly starts to rise, but as it gets higher, it starts to shake more, and they eventually lose communication with the ship once more. The crew must prepare for collision as the bell suddenly begins to fall quickly. The alarm sounds as soon as the bell touches the water surface, and Jones yells in pain. As Engel pokes his knife inside Jones' mouth, Mitch and Hurst instantly hold Jones down. It turns out that Jones had pressure trapped in a tooth cavity behind the filling, but the shove of the knife rapidly takes care of it. Mitch tries to get in touch with the ship once more in vain while Jones takes a minute to recuperate and the system settles. Engel makes the decision to investigate the damage outside and finds that there is only a few scratches and that the beacon is still operational. Hurst searches the inventory and discovers first aid supplies and blankets, but no survival suits. The backup heater is operational, as Mitch points out, so maybe that will be sufficient. Engel then keeps swimming to inspect the umbilical lines that link the bell to the ship. The ship has been completely devastated by the storm, and he is now staring at the sinking parts, while he follows the trail. Engel discovers all of the crew members' bodies, including Carson, which just makes things worse. To demonstrate that the ship has been sunk, Engel goes back to the bell and drops a piece of it. The fact is that they are trapped here with little oxygen, therefore they don't have much time left. At first, Mitch doesn't believe it and asks Jones to attempt the communications again. However, Engel sights the bodies and shouts at him to get his attention. And fight starts after a pause for the news to take in, and it becomes worse when Engel says that the firm is on lockdown and nobody will show up. Hurst and Engel take hold of each other and prepare to start fighting, but Mitch immediately separates them and orders everyone to stop fighting so that oxygen may be preserved. Then, in hopes that a passing ship may get the message, Mitch recalls that they know the exact position of the pipe from when they came down to mend it. He writes it down and sends it to Jones to communicate over the comms every 15 minutes. In order to be seen, Engel believes they should remove the clump weight from the bell, but Mitch forbids him, arguing that because the pressure inside and outside is equal, rising may be fatal. A loose oxygen tank causes the bell to start losing air at that precise instant, setting off the alarm once more. Jones, who is unfamiliar with this and is already experiencing dizziness, is given priority while the crew races to fetch some masks. As Mitch fixes the bell and realizes they've wasted 2 hours of breathing gas, Engel likewise falls to the ground due to his advanced age and picks up the second mask. Hurst wants to go hunting for the ship debris for a new tank. Engel wants to make the bell float, but Mitch says they should wait since it's too unsafe. This leads to another disagreement. Jones keeps attempting the communications, and then all of a sudden, a Chinese fishing ship responds. Unfortunately, they won't give assistance and hang up because there aren't any Chinese people in the bell. Then, before they lose another oxygen tank, Hurst and Mitch gear up to go examine the bell damage again. Jones surmises that Engel has little chance of being rescued as he watches them go and starts to reflect on the day he went out on a trip with his now-deceased wife. Hurst and Mitch modify the valves and cylinders in the meanwhile, but they also see that there is a crane block on top of the bell. The crane block collapses and collides with Mitch, knocking him out while they work on tightening the valves. Hurst panics and rushes to aid him only to find Mitch's umbilical cord snagged when he gets there. Engel jumps into the water without any suit on after failing to separate him with his trembling hands. Mitch is soon separated from his umbilical cord thanks to Engel's knowledge, and he and Hurst bring him back inside the bell. As soon as they get inside, they take off Mitch's helmet, and he starts to take deep breaths and wake up. Then he starts berating Hurst mercilessly, telling him that his diving days are over and that his hands are now useless due to his addiction. Hurst expresses regret but also notes that the mechanism had malfunctioned and that the isolation brought on by his 18 years as a diver is the only reason he drinks. After a few hours, the bell's air pressure is reduced by half. Engel argues that they should act, but Mitch is obstinate and tells them to wait. Engel and Jones fall asleep shortly after, and Mitch starts to pray. When he hears radio static, he is also about to nod off, but when he rushes to see, he regrettably realizes it was just a false alarm. He then checks on Hurst but discovers that he has left. Hurst answers the phone after Mitch awakens the others and says he's going to repair the situation. Hurst has apparently donned a suit and is searching for additional oxygen tanks by tracing the ship's umbilical. Hurst refuses to obey Mitch's request to return and instead continues to discuss his previous diving adventures. The hypothermia, however, gets worse the further he travels, and eventually he enters a delusional state, which causes him to talk about his family. Hurst soon starts whining about how hot it is and collapses to the ground, dragging his body on the sand while gasping for air. Engel argues in the bell that because Hurst is going to die anyhow, they should turn off the gas. According to Engel, Hurst should pass away swiftly rather than in agony slowly. Since Mitch doesn't believe they have the authority to decide who lives or dies, he is concerned by the notion, which leads to yet another disagreement. Jones decides to turn off the gas as Engel and Mitch are still fighting, and after pressing the button, they soon stop hearing Hurst's respiration, which indicates that he has passed away. They are unaware of the fact that he was just 2 steps away from discovering the ship's oxygen tanks. Mitch says a prayer and drops Hurst's second umbilical end into the sea as a final farewell. Later, Jones chooses to go swimming because he didn't get to go diving while working. He dives into the water and is shocked to see his wife there, looking stunning in just her underwear. They get back together and begin kissing, but as the passion builds, blood starts to ooze from their mouths. As the blood starts coming out, Jones panics and attempts to swim again, but his wife firmly holds him in her arms. Jones opens his eyes abruptly and realizes it was all a nightmare. Jones begins to realize that he won't survive and that his wife would have to care for the child by herself when Mitch checks on him. Mitch tells him a tale of how fantastic it felt to hold his son for the first time in response to his question about what parenthood is like. The heater begins to malfunction at that point, increasing the risk of freezing to death. Fortunately, Jones is a skilled improviser and creates a handmade steam boiler by using a torch and a water tank that they had filled. With little over an hour remaining to broadcast, Mitch decides to send a letter of apology to his family, in which he expresses regret for not quitting his work when they requested him to. Then, in order for it to be discovered alongside his corpse later, he places it in a sealed plastic bag. When Engel sees this, old memories come flooding back. However, the moment is cut short when the communications suddenly start to work again. It's a naval frigate that arrived after the Chinese fishing ship delivered them the Bell's message, and they confirm that the corporation never contacted anybody. Since they don't have the precise coordinates, it may take hours for this new spacecraft to locate them. Engel proposes a solution given that it appears they would still perish. If they combine the gas with their remaining helium in the drywall chambers on the pipelines, they could buy enough time. Mitch is apprehensive because they have been drifting for miles and have no idea where it is, but Engel argues that they aren't really left with many options. After receiving Mitch's blessing, Engel dons his suit and begins looking. When he locates a pipe and communicates its number to Jones over the communications, Jones consults the map and directs him to the nearest weld chamber. Engel runs out of heat as he continues to walk, exhausting all of the gas in the suit. Engel rejects Mitch's request to have him return, saying that they are all going to die anyhow. Engel discovers more dead while Jones continues to give him directions through the communications, but he finally locates the weld chamber. He is about to reach for it when he realizes he has reached the end of the umbilical cord and can no longer go forward. Engel chooses to separate in order to reach the tanks since he has no other option, disobeying Mitch's advice and breaking communication. Mitch decides to put on the second outfit and pursue Engel because there is not much air left in the Bell. After a short distance of trekking, he discovers Engel asleep on the ground with a tank next to him. He initially assumes the worst after discovering the disconnected umbilical. Mitch manages to catch both Engel and the tank and pull them back to the Bell by straining his own umbilical to the limit. The moment the oxygen is going to run out, the alarm suddenly sounds as Jones assists the others in standing up and removes Engel's helmet. While he begins doing CPR on Engel, Mitch sends Jones to attach the new tank, but he receives no answer. Mitch pulls back, thinking it's too late, and starts weeping alongside Jones. Jones is about to start crying when he spots Engel making a small twitch. The flashbacks return to Engel's thoughts when the new tank starts supplying oxygen to the Bell, and his companions eventually succeed in bringing him back to awareness by having him sit up and giving him a mask. They have 2 hours of air remaining right now. They are told by the naval frigate that they will be in the vicinity of their coordinates in an hour and a half. But they still need to find the specific location because they lack maps because the oil firm has cut off all connections. Mitch points out that they should be able to locate the beacon signal, but the ship explains that the sonar isn't picking it up since the ship's debris is probably dispersed over the area. Before they hang up, the Navy frigate assures them that they will quicken their search, and Jones advises them to make the beacon float so it would be seen on the sonar. The beacon will become entangled in the deep ocean currents if they don't attempt, even if it's perilous. While getting ready, Mitch offers to attend, and he gives Engel his letter so that he may send it to his family in the event that something were to happen to him. Additionally, he talks about the conversation he had with his family about quitting his work. In response, Engel says he lost his wife in a vehicle accident. Because he believes he didn't pull hard enough to free her from the rubble, Engel still feels bad about it. After that, Mitch takes hold of the beacon and starts to swim upward as far as the umbilical would allow. The beacon continues vanishing, so Mitch needs to take off his gloves in order to activate a switch Jones invented to send it up. At that point, a group of jellyfish appear, taking advantage of his naked hands to sting him repeatedly and cause him to drop the beacon. Even though Mitch cries out in agony, he fights off the small monsters and succeeds in getting the beacon back. The jellyfish encircle him and sting him to death as he eventually hits the button and lets it float up. When they can no longer hear Mitch on the radios, Jones sobs in the Bell. Jones is having a breakdown since he believes he won't ever see his wife again, and Engel orders him to turn off the gas out of rage at yet another defeat. In order to calm Jones down, Engel must turn off the gas himself. After shaking Jones to bring him to his senses, however, Engel sees that he is also losing his cool and releases the youngster. Close by, Mitch's body disappears into the depths of the sea. Jones then pulls a knife from his pocket and argues that death by suffocation is too slow. Jones doesn't believe he can do it alone, so Engel should murder him to put an end to the situation as soon as possible if rescuers don't arrive in time. Another transmission arrives from the Navy frigate before Engel can respond. The beacon has been located, but it will take an hour for the divers to arrive. Engel assures them he'll make the bell float up before hanging up since he has no other option. The group disconnects the bell, which immediately begins to rise. However, as the umbilical becomes entangled in the ship's debris, it abruptly comes to a stop. Engel notes that they will need to swim up, but it will be difficult because they must ascend 170 feet whereas Jones has never swum higher than 30. There is just one outfit remaining as well. Engel says Jones will go up with the suit while he stays to speed up the decompression, pointing out that it's better for one of them to survive than none, and Jones pulls his knife, ready to finish things. Jones can't believe what is happening and wants to know why Engel is prepared to do such a thing given that he is the superior swimmer before giving Mitch's letter to Jones and giving him instructions on how to survive the dive. Engel admits that there was a child in the other car the day of the collision, and he also failed to save him. He is now unwilling to allow another child to perish. Jones acknowledges this and dons the suit while Engel issues orders over the comms as he swims up. Engel disregards the fact that the bell is beginning to fill with water and warns Jones to brace himself for discomfort as a result of the pressure shift. Jones pushes him to push past the ache in his limbs as he begins to scream and declare his fear. Jones takes a large intake of air and detaches as he reaches the end of the umbilical in order to swim the final 20 feet without the suit. Jones suffers from decompression sickness as a result, and he also begins to bleed from the mouth. But he keeps going with what little strength he has left till he surfaced. He floats for a little while before being discovered and saved by a naval boat. Jones is alright. The main ship informs Engel over the intercom. When the water is almost finished filling the bell after the air runs out, Engel decides to give it one last try while removing his wife's jewelry. He exits the bell by swimming, but he is unable to ascend too high without a suit, and he drowns. Eventually, Jones is reunited with his wife, but it's difficult for him to move on from the agony of what happened.